اهلا بيكم في كايرو دار. هنكمل مع بعضنا اهم 100 سؤال في البايو ان شاء الله. هنبدا باول حاجه give reason for each of the following. The starchy grains are small in size inside the chloroplast. The starch small in size inside the chloroplast. The answer that to facilitate the conversion of the pig starch molecule into soluble sugar, which can transfer from the chloroplast to the leaf and from the leaf to other parts of the plant through the phloem tissue. So the answer to facilitate the conversion of starch into soluble sugar to move outside the chloroplast. The next question. There are many convolutions in the lining of the large intestine. The convolution inside the large intestine facilitate the absorption of water inside the large intestine, because the water is not absorbed inside the small intestine but absorbed inside the large intestine, because the enzymes inside the large intestine need the presence of the water to act, and also to facilitate the passage of the solid non-digested food material from the small intestine to the large intestine through the end of the small intestine with the diameter 1.25 centimeter. So the convolution inside the large intestine to facilitate the absorption of water, salts and some vitamins through the convolution of the lining wall. The next question. Gastric juice doesn't affect the epithelial cells of the stomach, or the stomach not digest itself. That's because of the presence of three reasons. The first is a thick layer of mucus that line the stomach internally. Number two, the pepsinogen is secreted in inactive state, which is become activated inside the cavity of the stomach by the action of HCl and the activation of pepsinogen by HCl that change it into pepsin or into active pepsin inside the cavity or in the food of the stomach. And also the HCl is secreted from the tips of the cells, and the HCl is secreted in the form of diluted state, and absorption of water takes place to increase the concentration of HCl inside the stomach. HCl and pepsinogen are secreted from cells away from each other inside the stomach. But the three reasons: the first is the stomach lined internally with the thick layer of mucus from special cells that inside the stomach containing cells for secrete mucus, secrete HCl and pepsinogen. Pepsinogen doesn't become active unless it reaches the stomach cavity where the presence of HCl, and the HCl is secreted from the tips of the cells and poured directly toward the stomach cavity where the presence of the food. The next question. Give reason. The companion cell has a large number of ribosomes and mitochondria. Ribosomes are the centers of protein synthesis, or the centers that form the protein. Mitochondria is the center of energy production. That means we need the presence of enzymes and the presence of energy. That is the active transport, because the active transport is the passage of any substance through the plasma membrane against the concentration gradient with the help of chemical energy that released from the aerobic respiration. So the answer that in order to control the vital functions of the safe tubes and producing energy, because Thine and Canny explain that the passage or the cytoplasmic streaming, which is the cytoplasm which carry the food from one safe tube to the neighbor one through the pores inside the safe plate, that need the presence of chemical energy. The energy produced from the aerobic respiration means the burning sugar inside the cells to release amount of energy that needed for active transport. The next question. The capillary theory is wake force for the ascent of sap. Ascent of sap means carrying water and salts from the root to the leaf of the higher trees. So the capillary action or the capillary action, which is the raising of water inside the finest tube or capillary tube against the gravity, that act as the weakest force. That because the capillary of the xylem vessels from 0.5 to 0.02 millimeter, and that allow the water to rise for not more 1.5 meters or 150 centimeter, that very short distance, because we need to explain the ascent of sap in higher trees. So the capillary action theory is not enough to explain the ascent of sap in higher trees. The next question. What would happen in each of the following cases? Introducing a piece of bread inside the mouth and chewing it continuously for 3 minutes. لو خلينا حتة عيش في بقنا وقعدنا نعمل chewing كده للبيس of bread دي for about 3 minutes، إيه اللي يجرى؟ Inside the mouth is the presence of ptyalin enzyme or salivary amylase, which hydrolyzes starch into maltose. The bread change into maltose inside the mouth, so it become more sweet. So the starch change into maltose sugar by the effect of ptyalin enzyme or salivary amylase. The next question, what would happen? Removal of the ileum experimentally from the body of mammalian animal. What about if the ileum is removed from a mammalian animal? The animal will die, because the ileum is a part of the small intestine that's responsible for complete the digestion of food inside the digestive system, and also the absorption takes place inside the ileum. So the absence of digestion and the absorption of food, that leads to this. So the animal will die because the ileum, or inside the ileum, digestion of protein of food is completed, and also absorption of food takes place inside the ileum. اي ريموفال او اي ابسنس لازم اشوف الفانكشن بتاع الحاجه، وبعد كده لما اشوف لو عملت ريموفينج او كات او ابسنس او كل الكلام ده اشوف الفانكشن دي هتقف ويجرى ايه. السؤال اللي بعده. The Casparian strip is absent in the cells of endodermis in the plant roots. What about the function of Casparian strip? The Casparian strip is a ribbon made of suberin inside the endodermal cells of the root. The endodermis is the innermost layer of the cortex inside the root. So the Casparian strip prevents the water to move to reach the phloem, but allow the water to pass to reach the xylem vessels only. So the absence of Casparian strip, that means the water will pass through the phloem by imbibition, which is not controlled by the cell. So the absence of Casparian strip or absence of suberin ribbon, that means the water will pass by imbibition to the phloem with the presence of food or high energy materials that carried by the cytoplasm inside the phloem or inside the sieve tubes in the form of cytoplasmic streaming. The next question. What would happen in each of the following cases? The passage of ionic salts from the soil to the root cells against the concentration gradient. Against the concentration gradient يعني كده from low to high. From low to high that needs the presence of energy, so that act as an active transport. So the passage of any substance against the concentration gradient from low to high, that needs the presence of chemical energy, and the chemical energy is released from the aerobic respiration or burning sugar at the presence of oxygen. So the cells need more amount of energy produced from the aerobic respiration, that means the presence of sugar and oxygen inside the mitochondria. The next question. What would happen in each of the following cases? Absence of valves from veins. We understand that the veins are non-pulsating blood vessels. So the veins carry blood from the body organs to the heart. So inside the veins we need the presence of valves which allow the blood to move in one direction from the body organs to the heart and prevent the flow back of the blood. So the absence of valves, that means flow back of the blood will take place, that means the blood will return back to the body organs, the returning of the blood to the body organs, that causing a disturbance in the circulatory system, and that may lead to the presence of blood clotting inside the blood vessels. So the function of the valves, any valves at any part of the body allow the blood to move in one direction and preventing its flow back. The absence of valves, that means flow back of the blood that takes place. The next question. What's meant by each of the following plasmid? Plasmid is one or more small circular DNA inside the prokaryotic cells, and may some eukaryotic cells as a yeast. So the plasmid is one or more small circular DNA molecule in some prokaryotic cells. But what about the polysome or polyribosomes? Polysome or polyribosomes, that means the presence of mRNA carry several to over 100,000 ribosomes attach to the mRNA and transcribe or translate the mRNA into amino acids. So the presence of mRNA carrying great number of ribosomes or over 100 ribosomes on the mRNA, that's called the polysome or polyribosome. The presence of polyribosomes, that means the acceleration of the formation of polypeptide chains that formed as a result of the translation of the mRNA into amino acids and joining amino acids into polypeptide chain by the action of the peptide transferase enzyme in the reaction which is called the peptide transfer reaction. The next question. What's meant by releasing factor? The releasing factor is the special protein that located on the stop codon on the mRNA that causing the termination of the protein cells. So the releasing factor or the ribosome move along the mRNA to translate the mRNA codons into amino acids and joining amino acids into polypeptide chain. But the presence of releasing factor, which act as a special protein that located on the stop codon, remove or separate the two units of the ribosomes and release the polypeptide chain in cytoplasm, and that causing the termination of the protein sense due to the presence of this special protein on the stop codon. But the human genome is all genes and the DNA inside the somatic cells. That's called the genome. The genome in the human, or the human genome, about 70% codon and 30% of the human genome non-codon. And we understand that the codon parts of DNA are responsible for the formation of RNA and protein, but the non-codon parts of DNA keep the structure of DNA and also that act or determine the codon parts of DNA. My dear students, that's the end of this part. Thank you very much. Goodbye and good luck.